Let me introduce the three speakers for this session. Firstly, Chris Hewitt, FPM Solutions Manager for the Coastal Region, Jackie Twigg, Senior Consultant, and myself, Jonathan Wild, Account Manager for IOCO in the Western Cape. This session will be recorded and a link will be provided. Please use the Q&A and the chat in the usual way, and we'll leave a few minutes for questions at the end. For those of you who don't know IOCO data, just a brief introduction. We have over 120 consultants who help our clients to get more value from their data. With over 30 years of working with data, we've developed a comprehensive end-to-end solutions and services offering, and I'd like to highlight just a few examples. As your analytics partner, we can help you build a roadmap for your data journey, design a solid foundation for your data platform, improve users' data literacy, leverage the latest data technology such as predictive modeling, AI, and machine learning, automate planning, reporting, and consolidation processes, and close the gap between your data and your business strategy. And we can do all this with all your data sources, internal or external, structured or unstructured, on-premise or cloud. This event, Evolving to Planning Analytics, Evolving Your Budgeting Beyond Spreadsheets, is focused on automating planning and reporting. We're going to be showcasing the latest version of IBM Planning Analytics, also known as TM1, fondly known as TM1. It's been around for a few decades. If you're new to TM1, then you're going to get a good idea of its potential to automate spreadsheet processes in your business. For current TM1 users, you'll be seeing the new and the more powerful visualization engine and improved workflow capabilities. And you may also get some new ideas on how you can get even more value from TM1. Now I'll hand over to Chris for the demo. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks very much, John, and a warm welcome to everyone to this event. So before I jump into the demo itself, just a few quick pointers to tell you exactly what the hype around planning analytics in TM1 is all about. So the first thing to note is that TM1 is an IBM product, and it's been around, like John said, for decades. It's used by thousands of people around the world, thousands of companies, to really transform their lives and make the whole finance process of budgeting and forecasting a lot easier. And I'm sure this demo will show exactly how that can happen. In terms of the use case for TM1, it is primarily used for budgeting, forecasting, financial reporting, cash flow reporting, which has also become a hot topic in current economic times. But the other thing to note is that TM1 is a powerful modeling tool in its own right and can be used to model virtually any process in your business. So this, I think, will become apparent as we actually go through the demo itself, and should resonate with you. The other main point to raise at this point is that TM1 has an Excel front end as its preferred interface. Because Excel is a tool that everyone uses and is familiar with. So we'll do a lot of the demo using the Excel interface. And with it having Excel as an interface, it certainly automatically makes it a tool that is very strong on self-service and ease of use. So Excel is a tool that everyone uses, they're familiar with it, and using the Excel interface means you can leverage what you already know with some amazing new features that take Excel to the next level. The other thing to mention is that besides Excel being the workhorse behind capturing and modeling all your information, it also comes supplemented with some really fantastic dashboards and visualizations. The final point, just to make it at this stage, and this will resonate throughout the presentation, is that although the information is displayed in Excel, the great win behind TM1 is that all of the information is stored in a central location and represents a single version of the truth. The data is not stored in Excel. Excel is really a window into it. But what it means is that you can get to work on data that everyone gets to see. Everyone is always referring to the same version of the numbers that you're looking at. So a couple of high-level points. You might have a few questions, but I'm sure as we go through the demo, all of these points will become more apparent to you. And then the final slide, just before we jump into the demo, is just to talk about what we're going to be showing you today. So the solution that we are going to be showing you today is not some made-up fabricated sample solution. It's actually a real live model from one of our customers. And that customer is the Bearing Man Group in South Africa, and they are one of the biggest engineering component suppliers in the whole of Africa. And they have kindly allowed us to use their model, and it goes without saying that we have randomized all the data. So any numbers that you see, please don't read anything into the values that you see. The other thing to mention at this point is that this diagram represents the end results of the solution that we designed. When we started off with a blank canvas. To use an Excel analogy, we started off with a blank Excel spreadsheet. And the whole point, the whole takeaway behind this is that TM1 is not a solution which has got specific modules that you have to use and conform to. So for example, if you're looking at sales budgeting, you don't have a module for sales where you have to try and force fit your existing business to a predefined software application that limits you and results in compromises that you have to make. We literally build it from the ground up, and it really represents a framework for us to develop in, similar to the concept, like I said, of using Excel from the start and weaving together the solution that you require. The other thing to note is that you probably see a whole lot of little cubes peppered across the diagram. And for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of the cube, just a quick, simple explanation of what a cube is. The easiest way to understand it and conceptualize it is to think of it as something similar to an Excel pivot table, but it's a whole lot more than a pivot table, and I think you'll get to see that. Think of a pivot table on steroids and centrally located for everyone to use. So when we assemble a solution for any customer, it typically follows a similar pattern. So obviously this is a unique niche or industry vertical, engineering components, but conceptually most implementations that we do are similar in terms of how they're designed. And that design really involves us taking all the main budget areas that require quite a lot of high science and quite a lot of model complexity. And what we would do is have a dedicated cube for each of those areas. And that cube would contain all the information required to actually crunch your numbers. So we'd often bring in actuals as a basis for doing your budget. But more importantly, we'd also stick in all the business logic into the cubes to calculate things like revenue, where you're multiplying quantities and costs, escalation of prices. And the beauty behind that, unlike conventional Excel, is all of that logic needs to be written once and it's stored in one location and nobody can change it. So we're all familiar with situations where we've worked in Excel, the formulas have gone south, people have overwritten them, they've been inconsistent. So all of that risk and headache is eliminated completely by TM1. The other thing that you will see on the diagram is a whole lot of arrows, and those arrows represent linking, and linking is exactly the same concept as you have in Excel, but the big difference is that those links are not involving linking of actual Excel worksheets. They are linking the individual databases together, and as such, they are bulletproof, they can't be broken. And we all know the pain and suffering caused by Excel when we insert rows and columns and don't refresh links. Things can really go south and your numbers can crop up with lots of errors. In terms of the linking, besides linking the cubes together, so in this particular case, you will see a common kind of architecture where you'll link, for example, your sales cube to a general ledger cube, which drives your income statement. You can also link the cubes pretty much any way you want to. So in the first instance, like I said, you probably always want to link to a general ledger cube, which is really at an account and a cost center level. And you'll be able to link your sales information to particular accounts and particular cost centers based on branches and customer groupings. And what that means is as soon as you change a number in your sales cube, you can literally, for example, change a single price for a single customer in a particular month, hit your enter key, and it will immediately flow through to your general ledger and give you a revised bottom line. So it's really the ultimate Excel dream without the risks, where you have a whole series of interconnected objects that update instantaneously and can't be broken and are highly scalable. So Excel is limited in how much data it can cope with. We can import massive amounts of data, do huge numbers of calculations, and your results will be live and instantaneous. In terms of linking with other cubes, we can, like I said before, you can link these cubes any which way you want to. So you can link, for example, your sales cube to your payroll cube. And you often might want to do that when you are calculating your commissions. So when your sales update, the relevant sales manager commissions will update automatically in the payroll cube, and those in turn will feed through to the general ledger cube. When you have new employees, you also have over here a vehicle cube, a vehicle lease system. So if you're budgeting a new headcount, they might be entitled to a company car, and that will automatically feed through to here, calculate your lease calculation, calculate your insurance and tracking. So it's kind of infinitely flexible in terms of the cubes that you can design from scratch, and how you can link them together with the logic that you can build in. And we can say with great confidence that we can model the most complicated Excel spreadsheets. And we can also say that there are many cases where Excel simply is not able to handle the complexity of modeling, and TM1 is a tool of choice that does that with great ease. Okay, so guys, I'm going to stop talking about slides now, and I'm going to move on to the demo itself. So if I just stop sharing and flip screens over here, and click onto my screen, and then okay, so just to check with the team, can you guys see my screen now? It should be showing an Excel document.
Yes, I can, Chris.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so this looks like Excel on any other day. So we all know it, we all look at it, but the great thing behind this is that you now get a section, an add-in for Planning Analytics or TM1, and we can click on the tab, and we can then start working with Excel in conjunction with all the data that we have on our TM1 server. So just to give you guys a little brief tour of how you can get your data and how you can work with it. In a nutshell, you have all your cubes on the right-hand side. We talked about those earlier. And it's really just a question of opening your cubes, finding the data you want, dragging it to Excel, changing it around, using Excel formatting, doing what you want, and you have your information. So the great thing is that you don't have to have a degree in IT. You don't have to be overly technically inclined. If you're already using Excel, it's a very easy tool to pick up. So let's just give you a little bit of a run through of what that might look like. So I'm going to drag some information from the sales cube onto the sheet. And the first thing that you notice is that it asks me to sign in, which automatically highlights one of the big benefits is that you can secure your data in TM1, and you can secure it not just in terms of the sheet that you have, you secure it at a data level. So you can secure it from any angle, really. It's a multi-dimensional tool. You can secure particular cubes, you can secure read-write access, you can secure cost centers, you can secure divisions. So what you can do is you can have reports that you write in one place, and depending on who you are, you will open that template and see what you're allowed to see, and read or write the information as it's been set up. So security becomes a very easy thing to handle rather than having multiple sheets floating around. Okay, so I've got the data across, and now what I can start doing is moving the data around, swapping and shifting rows and columns, drilling on information. So kind of stuff you're familiar with in a pivot table, but this is obviously a lot more scalable and more powerful. So we have our row section here. So we have all the product divisions. So what I can do is I can take my customers and drop it onto my product division to swap them around. And then as columns, I might decide I want to drag some information from the page filters to the columns. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag my year across, and then I'm going to drag my version across, if I can get my mouse working properly. And there we go. Okay, and a couple of clicks, I can produce a report showing the information. And once again, the point that I will keep driving home is that this information is the information that is stored in the central repository. It is not saved in Excel. So if someone goes and updates one of these sales budget numbers in a different template, I will automatically see the latest update, the live information, and so will everyone else. So if I want to then work with my information besides swapping rows and columns, I can also filter the information and drill down on it. So for example, I might decide I want to look at my bearings product division, numbers change automatically, and I can then drill down on my information as well. So Bearing Man is a customer's hierarchy, and that hierarchy we import directly from the ERP system. So all of the categorizations themselves, and not just the data, is typically drawn from your ERP system so that it remains in sync, and whenever the changes there, they'll come through to your Tier 1 model as well. So I can drill down from country to a city, to a sales area manager, and right down to an individual customer. The great thing, obviously, that Team 1 brings to the fore is that you are working in Excel and you have the same Excel functionality that you're always used to using. So you can go to Excel, all the Excel formatting options, and go to Town and format your report precisely the way you want it to report. So we can literally replicate a report in exactly the same way as you currently have it set up for presentation level. So all of that is made available in Excel and formatting. And in addition, you can also supplement your data with Excel formulas. You can also add sheets to it, of course. So you can add a sheet. You can bring in information from different areas, such as the payroll cube, and you can put together things like an entire management accounts pack with your financial statements, additional information that supports your financial information like sales. And you can have a single workbook where you can change the month and the year and have your management accounts, for example, in this case, come through, refresh automatically. Okay, so just to give you an example of how the final formatted product can look like, I'm not going to waste time right now in Excel doing formatting. What I'm going to do over here is I'm going to open up an existing sheet that I already had and click open on that, and I'll go to a report which shows exactly the same data but has been spruced up a bit with all the nice formatting. And I'll open that up, click on adjust sales budgets, and here we have the exact same information, but looking a bit better just with the Excel formatting. So you can see over here that we also have, just for demo purposes, I've put in some Excel calculations over here. So typically we'd try and keep as many calculations as possible in the cube itself so that we can standardize the business logic. But there certainly will be cases where you might want to add your own columns and put your own calculations. I can then obviously drill down on my information. So I can double click on divisions, and I can, for example, choose a division. Obviously it's set on all divisions at the moment. I can go in here and choose a particular division, like the bearings division. So if I click on bearings and I want to have my information showing for bearings only, I can then see it. So what we're looking at here is a little report I've written, and you can hopefully see how quick and easy it is to do it. But another point worth mentioning is that there's no real distinction between a report and a template. So you design a report, but the whole idea behind Team 1 is to capture your budgets and enter in information. So this might be a report, but I can also, within this report or template or whatever you want to call it, I can go in and capture and change budgets. So at the very simplest level, I can go into South Africa. I can double click on that. I can go to a particular city. I can go to a particular area manager, and I can go to a particular customer that I have. So I've got BG Engineering over here showing 10,000 Rand, and I can go in here and type in a number, let's make it a big, R1 million. Okay, hit enter to that. And if I refresh my sheet, those numbers will come through automatically. So you can see it's gone up to 83 million. And anyone else who's looking at a report will see that 83 million. Anyone else who's looking at the income statement will see that the revenue has jumped and the bottom line has changed as well. Okay, so that's just a very quick tour of how you can grab information, you can manipulate it, and you can even capture data on it. So at this point, what I'm going to do is take a quick diversion into another interface that I have. And what I'll do here for this interface is go to web interface and click on Team 1 Web. So there is a web interface as well that does get used, we found, amongst our clients, where you have users that don't live and breathe in Excel, and they might be out traveling, and a web interface is something all they need. They just need to capture simple information in. So the tool of choice definitely is Excel, but often we have groups of users who just find it easier to punch in stuff via a web sheet. So the great thing here is that you don't have to go and redesign your reports in a web format. Anything you write in Excel is made available in the web. So as a finance person, I wrote my report showing sales, and without having to be a web developer, that very report that I wrote and that I'm proud of is available as a web report. So we can go and open that exact same report, and we can see that those numbers have come through. And that same change that we made is reflected at a higher level. So what I also want to chat about now, just in the web interface, but the concepts are the same regardless of whether you're using web or Excel or any other interface, is the concept of top-down and bottom-up budgeting. So in the previous example, we saw how you can go down to an individual customer, for example, and punch in a budget, and your overall numbers will change. So that's really the core bottom-up budgeting principle, is where you budget at the lowest level. But very often you want to do top-down budgeting, especially if you need to make high-level changes after board reviews, and you really don't have the time or the patience to go down to all the detail and capture it. So to simulate that situation, I'm going to change my divisions. I'm an admin, so I can see them all. And I'm going to play the role of the bearings product manager. Now, as the bearings product manager, I might decide that I want to actually go and change my budget, and I want to make it, for example, 90 million. Now, in the dark ages, with the Excel spreadsheets, that can be quite a tedious process, because sure, you can go along and say, right, I need a quick change, and you can assign it to one branch. So let's stick it to head office. The high-level numbers are all correct and updated. But then you have these budget hangover effects, where after you've done your budget, you then have to go back and really go and do your work properly, if I can call it that, and reassign high-level last-minute adjustments to all the underlying detail. Now, top-down budgeting can remove all of that pain. The other thing I'm going to talk about at the same time is the concept of what if planning, scenario analysis, and that is a great feature in Team 1, where you can play around with changes to your budget and make sure that you do so in a secure location in your own area, and you don't change the live budget. Because let's face it, what can happen is that you can go and change your budget numbers, and because this is a live, living, breathing system, if I can call it that, with everything linked, any number you change now will change the bottom line. So you don't want to see people, as you're working in the day, seeing these numbers spiking all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what they call a sandbox, where I can work on my own without causing consternation in the business. And I'll call this scenario 1. Okay, and I can go into here and then hit my enter key. Okay, and straight away I can work on these numbers without being concerned about the live numbers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push down numbers. I'm going to go to data spread. So we have the concept of spreading, where you can push numbers down. I can hit on proportional spread, and what I can do here is make this 90 million. Okay, and if I can find my mouse, I can hit apply. And it's pushed all of that down in proportion to the existing numbers down to the individual customer and month and to 90 million. And then I can go to my income statement. And because everything is linked, the sandbox concept is extended throughout the model. And let me actually just also go back and change this to all divisions. So I can see my total division. And if I flip back to my income statement, I can see here that my total budget is 247 million and I have a 26 million bottom line. And anything that has changed from the base is in blue, so payroll would have changed because commissions would have had an impact. I can then go back to scenario 1 and I can change it to base, and I can then see the impact of what my base number would have been without it. So 25 million versus 26 million. And you can have numerous scenarios, and once you're happy with them, you can commit those to the live version. Okay, so that's just a quick detour on using a different interface, but all that functionality is available regardless of the interface. And what I'd now like to do is just spend a little bit of time on the budgeting process for other areas. Because let's face it, budgeting, the whole power behind Team One is the modeling functionality and how you can actually calculate and model complicated budgets in Team One. So what I'm going to show you now in this section is the payroll budget. So payroll budgeting in the past is just like many other budgets, a detailed spreadsheet number crunching exercise. With TM1, the process is simplified dramatically. So in TM1, instead of having a big Excel spreadsheet with all the employees and tons of calculations and columns, there are really two sheets that we need to work with to do our entire budget. So we'll have the payroll parameter sheet and the new employee capture sheet. So if I open the payroll parameter sheet, I'm going to get a list of all the parameters that are going to drive the calculation of my budget for the new year. So for the existing headcounts, behind the scenes, we'll have a process that allows users to click a button and import all the information from the payroll system. So TM1 can connect pretty much to any database. You can click a button, import all the employee information down to a detailed employee level with all the information such as their pay grade, their current salary, all the benefits they're entitled to, commission structures, etc. We can import all that current information in, and then we can set up parameters that will then change that budget and calculate it into the new budget year. So obvious things like your basic increases, your commission structures. So once you update these, the minute you hit your enter key, it'll take your existing actuals for the year, and it will apply these new parameters to the new financial year, and your budget for your existing headcount is calculated for you straight away. The other sheet to look at is going to be the new employee capture sheet. So if we click on this and we hit open, we'll have a new employee capture summary sheet. And obviously the two parts to the payroll budgeting process, one is to capture your parameters, and the other one is to capture any new employees. So over here, I've just quickly pre-populated this, captured a new employee, free text, type in salesperson, type in the salary, pension fund scheme, salesperson, yes or no. So I can fill up this sheet, and every single cost center manager will be able to log on, see their cost center, and capture their wish list for new heads for the year. The minute they do this, the minute they hit the enter key, that data is automatically written to TM1. The calculations are done in the payroll cube. Those will feed through to your general ledger cube. Your bottom line will change straight away. So if I close this down, Excel by default will ask me if I want to save it, but I don't need to save it because anything that I've captured over here will automatically be written to the database. So I will decline to save that, go back here. And then what I can do is I can open up one of my budget reports. So you can write all your reports to consolidate, to show your consolidated results of who's been capturing what by branch. Open the payroll by branch sheet. And let me just go to our planning analytics and just refresh this firstly. Okay, and then I can see that I've got one of the cost centers over here, and I can double click on all employees, and you will remember that I captured a new employee here, 50,000 per month. Unfortunately, it's South African Rand and not Euros, just to mention, thinking we're living fantastic life out here. So you'll capture 50,000 Rand multiplied by 12 is 600,000. But the fantastic thing here is that it's calculated all the other associated employment costs. And those are not being done by formulas in the sheet. Those calculations we have in the cube, so no one can go and hack those formulas or mistype them or get some of the calculations wrong. So all of that is automatically appearing for you, and you can basically then have your payroll budgets calculated at a server level without any risks associated with it. Okay, so we're running slightly close to the timeline. So I'm going to just finish off by talking briefly at a high level about some of the other budget models we have rather than going into them. So if I now open up my application folders over here, I'll go to demo, and I will see that I've got a couple of folders set up here. So just to mention as well at this point that all these templates, capture templates, will typically save in Team1. You can create folders yourself rather than having these things floating around in different shared drives and windows. And these represent the areas that we typically include as part of the demo. So we won't have time today, unfortunately, but I'll just talk around them. And then also just to mention that in a typical complete budgeting model, you'll have a whole lot of areas that you will be budgeting. So we do lots of work in the manufacturing industry, so you'll have stuff to do with costings, with bill of materials. We'll have logistics calculations. So the most detailed, complicated models that are out there, those are models we replicate and enhance in Team1, and your entire budgeting process involves your calculations in Team1 without having to offline manual Excel spreadsheets. The complexity that you have can be handled in Team1. And there are many cases where Excel spreadsheets simply cannot handle the calculations and struggle to do so, like activity-based costing, and Team1 as a powerful modeling tool handles that exceptionally well. But anyway, back to what we have here when in terms of what we normally show in a demo. So we also normally have a Capex section. So rather than having a whole lot of Capex capture sheets emailed out across the business and having to collate them, you go to one place over here, everyone clicks on the same Capex template. It shows you your cost center information, you capture your wish list, you describe your asset, you select the asset class, you punch in the value, and all of that will then calculate the depreciation for you. As a reviewer, you can open a high-level report, and you can also then go and see what changes have been made or captured, and you can actually go and change them in that sheet. Okay, so that's Capex, and then other things to talk about in terms of stuff that we have available is other areas here. You'll have payroll, we've spoken about sales, we'll have general expenses. So a lot of customers will have an all and sundry cube where there's no science calculated. So that's fairly straightforward. You can basically earmark accounts where you just punch in a value, and users can basically just go in there and punch in values for things like stationery and consulting fees. So those don't require too much science around them. And then for travel, a little bit of an outlier here, especially since it's not material and no one's traveling these days, but it's just driving home the point that any bit of logic that you want to calculate and you want to make more scientific, there's no module required that you have to buy or purchase. You can knock up anything that you want. So for travel, what they wanted to do was travel by itemizing the trips. So all users would be able to capture a list of trips they're going on without the costs, just specify the source, the destination. There'll be a central lookup cube in finance with travel costs. It would all calculate out. Your budget gets done automatically for you. So again, anything that you want to put together, and where you can articulate the logic, we can basically change that. Okay, so a bit of a rush demo, and I apologize for that. Like I said, there's so much to see, to show you guys. The challenge is actually trying to fit in enough time to do it. So I could chat for ages about all sorts of exciting stuff, but hopefully this should give you guys a good indication of what's possible in TM1, how it works, and all the advantages that it has over your normal spreadsheet chaos that can happen when you budget with Microsoft Excel. Okay, so that's pretty much it from my side. And I think before I hand over to my colleague, just ask my panelists if there are any questions that have come through in the chat, and I can quickly, I think, probably have time for 2 questions. So, Vanna, are there any questions that you would like to pick? And I'll do my best to answer them.
Hi, Chris. Yes, the first question I have is it possible to see who changed the number that has changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Verna, and whoever asked that. So that's a feature that's very powerful in TM1. So TM1 is a full audit log, and any change that is made is recorded in an audit log, and it will show you the exact time the change was made, the number before the change, the number after the change, the name of the user who made the change. So you can run an audit report, you can see all the changes that have been made and who made the latest change. And the great thing about it is you can also reverse those changes. So we've had customers where they've worked on a budget for an hour or 2, and they've suddenly realized they've made a complete hash of it. So they can go back and say, right, for user Chris, if I've made the mess up, give me all the changes between 8 and 10 this morning for the sales cube. It will show them to me, and I can basically click on them and reverse them all to revert to what I did, or I can just revert to the latest change. So great for governance and control. So the short answer is yes, absolutely. Werner, that's basically it. And then just a second question in terms of timing, if you can pick up for me.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, the second question I have is how would I set up my chart of accounts in TM1?
Okay, also another common question. So the first thing to understand there is that all the categorizations in things like customer groups and customer hierarchies, and also the chart of accounts, the first place we normally look is in the ERP system itself. So if you have a chart of accounts set up there, we would bring in the chart of accounts, and that would be basically used in TM1. And the great thing there is if you change it in the ERP system, it will automatically flow through to TM1. But yeah, worth saying that for chart of accounts specifically, often ERP systems are quite limited in that they only give you sort of one chart of accounts. And with TM1, management account reporting is really a very powerful thing, because we can also use the ERP chart of accounts and also supplement it with alternative chart of accounts that users can set up and maintain. So you can have a chart of accounts for financial reporting, one for management reporting, one for summarized management reporting, and all of that you can control very, very quickly and easily in TM1. So yeah, the answer again is that's something that's a common thing that we do, and it's powerful, and it's not an issue at all. All right, Werner, thanks for that. Just keeping very close tabs on the timelines now. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to my colleague, Jackie, and she's also going to be talking about TM1. So all of this is TM1. It's a single solution. And what she's going to be showing you is just really additional functionality that sits on TM1. It's part of the same solution. So I won't steal her thunder anymore. I'll hand over to you. So Jackie, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. I just want to double check. Can you see my Planning Analytics workspace?
Yep, I've got it in front of me.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Chris. So good morning, everybody. So due to the time constraints Chris is referring to, I'm going to give you a very, very brief overview of some of the functionality available within Planning Analytics Workspace. First of all, just to set the scene, Planning Analytics or Workspace is still part of Planning Analytics, the tool set. So it's just a different interface. So like Chris demonstrated Planning Analytics for Excel this morning and web, Workspace still connects to your TM1 data. It's just a different user face, a different user interface. It has a lot of the same functionality as your planning analytics for Excel and your web. The key and major differences being added benefits in how you can visualize your data in order to quickly analyze it, and then also how you then organize that into structures for your business and your planning processes. So for this demo, as a result, I'm going to be focusing on the benefits. So we'll be looking at applications and plans and reports and analysis. As a very high level side note, your administrator can perform administration functions from Workspace as well. And then your modeler can perform data and modeling activities from Workspace as well. So let's have a look at our reports and analysis section. This is where any of the reports or dashboards or views that have been created for your organization using your TM1 data will sit in a central location for you to access. So let's have a look at the sales variance and analysis dashboard that's been set up for our organization. And let's just maximize this so that we can see it properly. So as you can immediately see, compared to what Chris has shown to us this morning, I've got a very visual and graphical dashboard that's been set up for the organization. And it's going to allow me to track the variance between my actuals and my budgets across various key metrics for the organization. Because it's connected to my TM1 database, I can just select another year and immediately all my graphics and my figures will update to reflect the latest information sitting in the TM1 database. I also have the ability to use freeform text to quickly search for another month. In this case, I'm just going to select November. And once again, you'll see that all my graphs and my metrics updates. And immediately I can see under my units sold that something doesn't quite look like, something doesn't look quite right towards the end of my 12-month period in my units sold. So let's have a look at our units sold in a bit more detail. As you can see, I've now got a bit more detailed data where I can see my volume sold by channel and by product. And I can immediately see that something doesn't look quite right between the variance in November towards the end of the year. So I'm just going to scroll down to get a view of my totals. And as I can see, there's a big variance between my actual and my budget. I just want to bring it back in line a bit. So since this has some of the same functionality as Web and Planning Analytics for Excel, I still have the ability to proportionally spread down. So at a high level, I can easily change my budget figure and bring it back in line. And this is written directly back into the TM1 database, and anyone else using PAX would be able to see these changes as well. And I can also go to my unit prices and use the same kind of spreading functionality. And in this case, let's just do a percent adjustment. I'm very optimistic, and across the board, I'm going to increase all my prices for November by 10%. Now let's pretend that I'm the person that's in charge of building some of the content within Planning Analytics Workspace. I decide that I want to add an additional tab or an additional graph to my dashboard. And in order to do that, all I need to do is just click on Edit. I can easily access content that's already been created in the form of the view within Workspace. And in this case, I think what I want to do is just add an additional graph where I can view my volume sold by product by quarter. In order to do that, I'm going to add an additional tab, and I'm going to select a specific template that I want for what I want to build. And all I need to do in order to add an additional graph is drag my view onto my templates, and I can just go and select explorations. And let's, in this case, I think an area chart would work well. So I'm going to select an area chart. And just like that, as you can see, and let's just maximize that, that's how quick it is for me to add an additional chart to my workbook. And now I can just save it. And the next time I access my dashboard, this graph will be in here. So there's a lot of a lot of functionality available to easily add items to your workbooks. And then also on the side, you would see there's properties while I'm in edit mode that just gives you additional power to change any of the formatting and a lot of different other settings for your graphs. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the home page now, and then let's have a quick look at the applications and plans. So this is where you can organize and structure the content that you've created within Workspace. So if we, for instance, have a look at the BMG budget plan that's already set up, what this allows you to do is organize any content that you've created in Workspace. So any of those dashboards or reports or input views, it allows you to organize it into a process in your organization. So in this case, BMG decided to organize, create a plan for their budgeting process. So their plan consists of out of 4 different steps. For each step in the process, they've gone and assigned the relevant assets that they will use to perform each step within the process. They've assigned which groups are responsible for each step within the process. They've also assigned different due dates of when each step needs to be completed. They've indicated whether the individuals completing the steps are required to submit when they're done. And then as an administrator, they can also manage the submissions and track the submissions from this view. So if I just very briefly and quickly go to the home page, just to show you from a user perspective, if I had to open this as someone that needed to contribute to this budget plan, this is the kind of view that I would see. So for the sales step within the plan, it's going to automatically open up the sales assets associated with the budgeting step to perform the sales budgeting. I can see that, oops, I'm already overdue. I was supposed to submit this by the 25th already. And then there's just additional call outs at the top that tell me that we aim to complete our budgeting process by March. And at a very quick and high level, that's applications and planning in Planning Analytics Workspace. And that's me. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris and Jackie. Lightning speed overview of both the classic functionality that TM1 brings and also the exciting new features. So thank you for that. There are a couple of questions. I know Werner has been answering some of them. Can I ask this one of the team? So Catherine asks, I've numerous branches and each need their own budget and all the branches need to add up to a consolidated. Each branch has its own salaries, wages, sales, calculations, etc. Would the system be able to support this? I think even I can answer that. As a non-consultant, I would say yes, but let's have one of you just elaborate on that answer, please.
Okay, so yeah, John, I'm happy to take that one. So just similar to the bearing man example that we had over here, I think it's almost exactly the same scenario. So certainly applicable to what we showed you guys. We had a whole lot of branches in each country, and they will all submit their own budgets for sales and for things like payroll. And the African countries will submit it in local currency. Those will then all get automatically rolled up into a total, and we'll have exchange rates parameter tables where we can convert the exchange rates. And just showing off now, we can also do things like eliminate intercompany transactions where branches are selling to each other as well. So all of that stuff is standard fare for us. And we can certainly handle that exceptionally well. And then just another thing to add, kind of related to that is you also have concepts of recharges between different areas, head office and branches. So all the recharges are formula based. Those are all set up automatically. So the great thing is if you change a number, all the recharges happen automatically. And that's often a big headache area when you need to rework your numbers after budget reviews and Exco asks for a change. You have to redo everything and all your recharges as well. You change it once, all of that happens, consolidates, recharges. So yep, that's certainly something we do often.
Right, thank you, Chris. Two other questions relating to the ERP, the underlying ERP. So Catherine also asks this question, does it work on any ERP system?
So there are connectors. So firstly, at the simplest level, we have connectors to all the major underlying databases. So a lot of the databases like SysPro, for example, or Pastel operate on SQL or Oracle databases. So SQL and Oracle are common databases we come across. SAP, there are specific connectors for SAP as well. So yeah, we haven't really had any issues in the past where we've not been able to connect to a data store. Sometimes payroll systems, we can connect to them, they're in SQL, but from a governance point of view, the only time we have a hassle is if the client doesn't want us to connect, even if it's only read-only access. Worst case scenario, they basically stop us from doing that, not because we can't, but because they're nervous about putting loads on their system. They can extract to a text file every day. We import it again. So that does occasionally happen, but that's not a technology limitation.
Thanks, Chris. Maybe a related question is around connecting to multiple data sources simultaneously. Can you just elaborate on the TM1?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. So the good thing about it is you can design a single integrated TM1 model like we have for Bearing Man, and you can connect to multiple different data sources to bring the data in. So some customers have an ERP system which does everything for them, but there are quite a few cases where people have external third-party bits of software that run in conjunction with their ERP system. So they might have dedicated logistics systems that control the fleet. Payroll is a common example of it. And what we can happily do is import data from multiple different data sources into one location to allow them to report and to model. And in this particular example over here, Bearing Man they use Sage for their payroll system. So that's a simple example of where we bring the detailed information in from a different system, but it all goes into one place. So yeah, it's got great ETL functionality to access data from multiple sources.
Fantastic. Another related question from Anel is asking, I know Werner has answered this on the chat, but it might be good for the rest of the audience to hear the answer. Can we push the finalized budget back into our general ledger software in the budget dimension? In this case, they're using Great Plains.
Yes, no, absolutely we can. So for one of our customers, quite a few actually, but just one that I have in mind, we certainly do that. So we can write back data into any relational database, and that works really well. Obviously, the vendors of the software like Great Plains can get a little bit twitchy because we're writing data into their database. So what often happens in that scenario is they will create like a staging table for us so that we don't mess around with their live tables. We'd never want to do that. You'd hit a button in TM1, it would push it into like a single budget upload table, for example, and then the Great Plains team would be able to use that and process it into the correct tables that they need within their ERP system.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. I think we've got time for this very last one from Pravesh, which I think has been answered, but what are the changes from the previous TM1 version? Pravesh, the idea with Jackie's last sort of 10 minutes or so was to give you a visual of that. Jackie, do you want to say anything in addition to what you've already shown us?
No, Chris, I think the main thing is it's going to depend on which version of TM1 Pravesh is on, if he's already using TM1, which I'm assuming based on the question. And it's also depending on, whether it's on the, because it could be that, like, I don't know if he's familiar with planning analytics for Excel yet. So then that's obviously is new, and Chris demoed that. Compared to the older version of TM1. And then from a workspace perspective, there's, if he knows workspace at all, things I just skipped over because of the limited time is there's additional items that have been added, like you can now mark items as your favorites, for instance.
Okay.
Out of your reports, you also have the ability to sort based on recents. There's a couple of additional things. If you had to really look at the graphs available, there's additional graphs that have been added with the latest releases of Planning Analytics Workspace.
Right, thank you.
Quite a lot.
Okay, fantastic, Jackie. Thank you. What we'll do, Pravesh, is we'll be in contact and see exactly where you're at, and then we can help you in more detail. It's time to bring the session to a close. Thank you, everybody that has been a part of this. All the preparation, and particularly Chris and Jackie and Werner for playing the roles you have. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will be emailing the recording. Any unanswered questions, we'll email the answers to you. And thanks again for joining us. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your day.